I never thought my life would turn into one of those romance novels I secretly read late at night. You know, the ones where seemingly impossible love blossoms in the most unexpected ways. But here I am, still trying to process what happened last weekend with my best friend, Alex. We've been inseparable since college, 5 years of friendship that I thought I understood completely. Until the day he wore my ring, just to try the size, and everything I thought I knew changed in an instant. Let me start from the beginning. Alex and I met during freshman orientation. He was this confident, athletic guy who somehow ended up in my literature seminar, looking completely out of place among the poetry enthusiasts and aspiring novelists. I remember thinking he'd drop the class within a week. Instead, he sat next to me, borrowed my syllabus, and somehow became a fixture in my life. We bonded over our shared love of obscure indie films and our mutual hatred for the dining hall's mystery meat Mondays. What made our friendship unique was how comfortable we always were around each other. There was never any awkwardness, never any unspoken tension. At least that's what I told myself. I'm gay, and Alex is straight. That was our dynamic, clear and simple. He dated women occasionally, nothing too serious, and I had my own brief relationships that inevitably fizzled out. Somehow, we always ended up on my couch on Friday nights, sharing takeout and critiquing whatever show we were binging at the time. I should mention the ring before I go any further. It wasn't just any ring. It was my grandfather's wedding band, a simple gold circle with tiny engravings on the inside, a date and 2 sets of initials. My grandfather gave it to me before he passed away 3 years ago. For when you find the right person, he had said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He was the first person I came out to, and his acceptance meant everything to me. The ring became a symbol of that acceptance, a reminder that love is love, regardless of who it's between. I kept the ring in a small wooden box on my dresser. It wasn't something I showed people or talked about often. It was private, meaningful in a way that's hard to explain to others. Alex knew about it, of course. He was there when my grandfather died, drove me to the funeral, and sat silently beside me as I tried to process the loss. He understood the significance without me having to explain it. That Saturday started like any other. Alex came over to help me assemble a bookshelf I'd ordered online. Another example of how our friendship worked. I was hopeless with instructions and tools. He could build practically anything with his hands. The morning passed with the usual banter, him teasing me about my complete lack of spatial awareness, me reminding him that not everyone could be blessed with both brains and brawn. It was comfortable, familiar territory. We took a break around noon, and I went to the kitchen to grab us some drinks. When I came back, Alex was standing by my dresser, the wooden box open in his hands. I wasn't upset. There was nothing off limits between us, but I was surprised. In 5 years, he'd never shown any interest in the ring before. "Sorry," he said, noticing my expression. "I was just curious. I've never actually seen it up close." He held the ring between his thumb and forefinger, examining the way the light caught the gold surface. "It's beautiful," he added, his voice softer than usual. I shrugged, trying to seem casual. "Yeah, it's pretty simple, but that's what I like about it." I handed him his drink and watched as he continued to study the ring. "Do you mind if I try it on?" he asked suddenly. "Just to see the size. My hands are probably bigger than your grandfather's were." The request caught me off guard, but I couldn't think of a reason to say no. "Sure," I replied, taking a sip of my drink to hide the inexplicable nervousness I suddenly felt. "It might not fit, though." Alex slipped the ring onto his right ring finger. It was a little tight, but it fit. He held his hand up, examining how it looked. "Not bad," he said with a smile. "What do you think? Do I pull off the married look?" I laughed, but something felt different in the room. The air seemed charged somehow, like the atmosphere before a storm. "It suits you," I admitted. But then again, most things do. It was the kind of compliment friends give each other all the time. But as soon as the words left my mouth, I felt exposed, as if I'd revealed more than I intended. Alex's expression changed, just slightly. His smile remained, but his eyes became more focused, more intent. He slid the ring off his finger and held it in his palm for a moment. "I wonder if it would fit you," he said, his voice casual, but his eyes never leaving mine. Before I could respond, he took a step closer. We were already standing near each other, but now there was barely any space between us. I could smell his cologne, that familiar scent that always made me feel at home. He reached for my left hand, not my right, but my left. The significance didn't escape me, but I couldn't process it, couldn't allow myself to read into it. "Let's see," he murmured, his fingers warm against mine as he held my hand steady. Time seemed to slow down as he gently slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, of course. It was meant for me, after all. But there was something in the way he did it, in the deliberate care of his movements, that made it feel like more than just trying on a ring. "Perfect," he said, but he didn't let go of my hand. Instead, his thumb traced small circles on my palm, sending shivers up my arm. I couldn't look away from his face, couldn't break the connection between us. The room was completely silent except for the sound of our breathing. And then, without warning or preamble, Alex leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't a dramatic, passionate kiss like in the movies. It was gentle, questioning, his lips barely brushing against mine before pulling back slightly, giving me the chance to step away. But I didn't want to step away. I wanted to step closer, to eliminate any remaining space between us. So I did. The second kiss was different. There was certainty in it, a mutual acknowledgement of something that perhaps had been there all along. His hands moved to my waist, and mine found their way to his shoulders. It felt both completely new and strangely familiar, like discovering a room in a house you've lived in for years but somehow never noticed before. When we finally broke apart, I was the first to speak. "What was that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The ring felt heavy on my finger, a tangible reminder of what had just happened. Alex's expression was a mixture of emotions, nervousness, relief, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Something I've wanted to do for a long time," he admitted. "I just never knew how to. I mean, I always thought I was straight. I never questioned it. But with you, it's different. It's always been different." I took a step back, needing space to think. This was Alex, my best friend, the person who knew me better than anyone. The person I'd secretly harbored feelings for but had buried deep, convinced they could never be reciprocated. "How long?" I asked, not sure if I wanted to know the answer. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times before when he was stressed or uncertain. "I don't know exactly." It wasn't a sudden realization, more like a gradual understanding that what I feel for you isn't just friendship. But I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't want to risk what we have. "So why now?" I gestured to the ring still on my finger. "Why this?" Alex's smile was tentative. "Honestly, I didn't plan it. When I saw the ring, something just clicked. It felt right somehow, like a sign or an opportunity one couldn't pass up. And then when I put it on your finger, I could not kiss you." The hours that followed were filled with conversation, with revelations and confessions that stretched into the evening. The bookshelf remained half-assembled in the corner, forgotten as we navigated this new territory. Alex talked about his confusion, about the relationships with women that never quite felt complete, about the jealousy he experienced when I dated other men but could never fully acknowledge to himself. I shared my own secrets, how I developed feelings for him years ago but convinced myself it was just a phase, how I dated other people partly to try to move on from him. It wasn't a simple or straightforward discussion. There were moments of uncertainty, of fear about what this meant for our friendship, for our individual identities. Alex had never been with a man before, had never even considered the possibility until me. I worried about being an experiment, a phase he would eventually outgrow. We addressed these concerns openly, honestly, in a way that only years of friendship could facilitate. As evening turned to night, we found ourselves back on that familiar couch, but with a new awareness between us. His arm around my shoulders felt different now, charged with possibility. The ring was back in its box. We both agreed it was too significant, too meaningful to be used casually, but its impact remained. "I'm scared," Alex admitted in the darkness, his voice low. "Not of being with you, but of messing this up. You're too important to me." I leaned my head against his shoulder, finding comfort in his familiar scent. "I'm scared too," I confessed. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe being scared means this matters." The days that followed were a delicate balance of familiarity and newness. We still watched our shows, still argued about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It absolutely does not, despite Alex's misguided opinion. Still functioned as the friends we'd always been. But there were new elements too. Holding hands while walking through the park, soft kisses when saying goodbye, the thrill of rediscovering each other in this different context. It wasn't without challenges. Alex struggled with questions about his sexuality, about what this meant for how he identified. Was he bisexual, pansexual, or was it just me, specifically, that he was attracted to? I tried to be patient, to give him space to figure it out, even as I battled my own insecurities about whether this was real or lasting. There were external challenges too. When we decided to tell our friends, the reactions were mixed. Some were supportive immediately, claiming they'd seen it coming for years. Others were confused, especially those who had known Alex as definitively straight. A few of his sports teammates made uncomfortable jokes, unsure how to reconcile this new information with the person they thought they knew. My family was cautiously optimistic. They'd always liked Alex, had welcomed him into family gatherings even before this shift in our relationship. My mother's main concern was whether this would last, whether Alex was serious about his feelings. "I don't want you getting hurt," she said during one of our weekly phone calls. Sometimes people confuse close friendship with romantic love. I couldn't blame her for the concern. I'd wondered the same thing myself. But there was something in the way Alex looked at me now, in the gentle certainty of his touch, that reassured me. This wasn't confusion or experimentation. It was recognition, an acknowledgement of something that had been developing between us for years. The most difficult conversation was with Alex's parents. They were traditional, conservative people who had specific expectations for their son's life. Alex was nervous about telling them, postponing the conversation for weeks until I finally pointed out that the longer he waited, the harder it would become. We decided to tell them together. I'll never forget sitting in their immaculate living room. The way his mother's expression froze when Alex explained that we were more than friends now. His father asked if this was just a phase, his voice tight with disapproval. Alex's response, firm, unwavering, made me fall in love with him all over again. "This isn't a phase," he said, reaching for my hand. "This is me finally being honest about who I am and what I want. I hope you can accept that, but even if you can't right now, it doesn't change how I feel." The conversation didn't end well. We left with tension hanging in the air, with questions unanswered and disapproval evident. Alex was quiet on the drive home, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I worried that this would be the breaking point, that the reality of being with me, the complications, the judgment, would be too much. But when we got back to my apartment, he surprised me. He took the wooden box from my dresser, opened it, and looked at me with determined eyes. "I want you to know that I'm sure about this. About us. Whatever happens, whatever anyone else thinks, this is real for me." He didn't propose. We both knew it was too soon for that. But there was a promise in his words, a commitment that went beyond the uncertainty of new relationships. I understood then that sometimes love doesn't follow the expected path. Sometimes it grows quietly in the spaces between friendship and romance, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. 6 months have passed since that day with the ring. We're still learning, still adjusting to this evolution in our relationship. There are moments of doubt, of course. Times when I wake up in the middle of the night and wonder if this can really last. If someone can truly shift their understanding of themselves so fundamentally. But then Alex will pull me closer in his sleep, murmuring my name with such tenderness, and those doubts fade away. The ring remains in its box for now. We've talked about it, about what it represents and what role it might play in our future. For the moment, it's a symbol of possibility, a reminder of how a single moment of courage can change everything. Maybe someday it will be more than that. Maybe someday Alex will slide it onto my finger again, this time with different words, a different promise. Or maybe I'll find a ring for him, a new symbol for this unexpected love. What I've learned through all of this is that love doesn't always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it's patient, building slowly through years of friendship, of shared experiences and quiet understanding. Sometimes it waits for the perfect moment, like a casual afternoon, a golden ring, and the courage to cross a threshold you never thought you'd reach. So if you're wondering about that friend, that person who makes your heart beat a little faster even though you've convinced yourself it's just platonic affection, maybe it's worth a second look. Maybe there's more there than you've allowed yourself to see. I'm not saying every friendship has romantic potential, or that you should confuse the comfort of familiarity with love. But I am saying that sometimes, the heart recognizes what the mind hasn't yet accepted. As for Alex and me, we're taking it day by day. learning to be partners as well as friends, navigating the complexities of a relationship that didn't follow the expected script. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Because at the end of the day, when we're back on that same couch, arguing about the same shows, laughing at the same jokes, but now with the freedom to express the love that's been there all along, I know we've found something rare and precious. And it all started with a ring, a moment of bravery, and a kiss that changed everything. Total _char_count, 18,204.